Corey Lewandowski is in my honest hell belief, in my opinion, a scumbag Trump sycophant who lied. I think he pushed someone in a what's it called? Like a convention last year, and that's when the Trump people let him go. Could be wrong there, but not a very nice man. But Trump's pulled him back in again to work with him. And I'm really just playing you this to show you something so that in the next clip, you can see as to why Piers Morgan brought the wrong people on today. So he's talking to Corey Lewandowski. The particular part I want you to hear about this is why Trump and Kamala Harris have never met, right? This is what we're looking at.
This debate is going to be massive, as the last one was. The last one was historically consequential. Joe Biden pulled out after it because he was so useless in that debate. And it was
like, even the setting of that, we talk about how he frames it, to say that Joe Biden was useless. It's just an interesting terminology to use about a, president. I understand colloquialism might be accurate, but the framing of something with these people, it's always set up. Like I wouldn't imagine he'd ever use the word useless about Donald Trump. He was so useless, and he wouldn't say that, but he said it about Biden. Now, I kind of agree he was pretty useless, but coming from someone who's hosting it, that's where you see the framing.
Embarrassing to watch. How's Donald Trump going to play it against Kamala Harris? They've never debated before. It seems to me that since Biden quit, Trump has slightly struggled to work out the best way to attack Kamala Harris. Well, for 90 minutes, it's him and her. Has he worked out the correct strategy, do you think?
Well, Piers, what's amazing is that these two individuals have never met. That goes to show you just how ineffective she was as a
They've never actually met.
Look, I think the only time they've ever been in the same room is when she attended the State of the Union speeches that he delivered when he was the president. That goes to show how ineffective she's been as a U.S. senator. No interaction in bipartisan negotiations on a number of major issues, including providing the largest tax cut in American history. She was nowhere to be found.
So that's all I'm going to play from that, because then coming up after him is a guy called Tim Miller. Tim Miller is an interesting cat because he's a former Republican who left the party over Trump. I guess he's still probably conservative, but he runs a podcast called The Bulwark. And this is a bit like with Brian Tyler Cohen the other day. He has asked the wrong person on. Now, I guess he's asked the right person on for getting clicks, but for actually explaining why the last guest was a moron and how Piers Morgan has no journalistic integrity, Tim lays it out for him.
You were listening to that. What did you make of it?
Piers, I got to tell you, that was one of the most absurd interviews I've ever had to watch in my life, and I just can't even believe that I had to sit through it. I just took a couple notes here. Donald Trump was tough standing up to Xi Jinping. Really? He totally folded to Xi Jinping during COVID, did nothing to try to push back on him at all. Donald Trump really behind the scenes cares about what the right things to do are, that he's a listener, that he listens to people. This is just ridiculous. We all know him, that his biggest flaw is that he's a perfectionist. I mean, do you read his bleats? He doesn't even spell things correctly. But the most
interesting watching the smirk on Piers Morgan's face, you wonder if he goes, this will be getting picked up. This will get me good coverage. I'm wondering, and this is one of the things about Piers Morgan. He's no longer a journalist, right? This is shock jock stuff, and I'll give you evidence of him no longer being a journalist next.
Most important thing I want to pick on is that little exchange you had about, oh, it's so surprising they've never met. Do you know why Trump and Kamala Harris have never met, Piers? Have you thought about it for a second? Do you know why they really haven't met?
Like, as a journalist, did you feel like going one layer down? If you're a journalist, did you investigate?
Tell me.
Because he was a toddler and he threw a temper tantrum after he lost a fair election. And for the first time in America since the Civil War, we did not have a peaceful transfer of power. We did not have a ceremonial transfer of power where the former president, like a man, goes and stands on the stage and greets the next incoming president, where he helps the incoming team with the transition, where the vice president's team meets with the. That didn't happen last time because Donald Trump attempted a coup and he had a temper tantrum and he flew home to Mar-a-Lago just to go golfing,
all of which
hang out with the Cougars on the pool.
To be clear, all of which.
And Piers Morgan now comes out thinking that him saying that he spoke out against it means that he's got a clean soul over this. Saying I agree with you and I said all those things doesn't actually mean you're doing your job as a journalist.
So that's what happened. That's why they haven't met.
Well,
because he tried a coup.
Well, to be clear, at the time I heavily criticised him for all the things you've just said. but that doesn't explain
Okay,
why.
sure, but
But
Corey
hang on,
Lewandowski
hang
comes on your
hang
show and he's like, "Oh, Donald Trump and Kamala haven't met."
Well, hang on. It
Oh
doesn't-
my goodness!
No, the
Wow,
point-
that's so interesting.
it
They haven't
doesn't-
met, and then Corey's over there saying
Hang
it's
on.
because
Let me
Kamala was
explain-
ineffective as a senator.
It doesn't-
No, it's
it
because
does-
Donald Trump was supposed to be a deal maker, didn't meet with any of the Democratic senators. He
Oh,
said he was going to be the art of the deal man, but he didn't try to actually do any deals. All he did was insult people on Twitter, and then after he lost to Kamala Harris fair and square and Joe Biden, he didn't have the
I get it.
dignity.
But why?
To have a transfer of power for the first time in American history.
I've just said
It
I
was
agree.
Shameful.
I've just said
It's embarrassing. He's an embarrassment.
I've just said I agree with you. So let's park that
Okay,
to
great.
one side.
Well,
What
but
I-
you didn't say it to Corey. You
No,
didn't
no.
challenge Corey. It was a very chummy interview. I know you want to get Trump on the show,
Well,
but it's very
You won't
chummy.
even let him off
You
the
didn't
rock.
challenge
Ask can be
Corey
chummy.
that much.
Ask
Right.
can be chummy too.
So there you go. So another, syndicated moment where we say he's asked the wrong people on.